Namaskar and welcome to Samvad. Today is June the 19th, and yesterday General Asim Munir, Field Marshal Asim Munir, was in Washington for a lunch with President Donald Trump. Now, we are not very sure as to what the culinary delights were on offer, but we are definitely interested in what geopolitics was being discussed, because he's the first serving chief of army staff who's been allowed a meeting with face-to-face meeting with the President of the United States. And to discuss this, we have with us somebody who's always there to support us, Lieutenant General Syed Ata Hasnain, former GoC 15 Corps and member NDMA. Welcome to Samvad, sir.
Thank you very much, Mike.
Sir, as I said, Field Marshal, I'm sorry I keep making that mistake. I hope he's not offended. Field Marshal Asim Munir was in Washington. Now he's the first serving chief of the army staff who's having a face-to-face meeting with any sitting US president. Now, General Munir will carry on with General Munir. Sir, General Munir is neither the chief of the country, he's not the head of the government, he's not a politician, but he gets a meeting. And we all know what his role in the Pahalgam incidents. Now, I was reading a Reuters report which says that Anna Kelly, the US spokesperson, she said that he was granted a meeting with President Donald Trump because he proposed his name for the Nobel Peace Prize for averting a nuclear war between India and Pakistan. You have seen geopolitics for such a long time. You analyze things in such detail, sir. Have you seen something or heard something so bizarre?
Thank you very much, first of all, for inviting me for your wonderful program. I'm not going to call him either Field Marshal or General. I just call him Asim Munir. I think it just deserves to be called Asim Munir because he's perhaps the most ordinary army chief that Pakistan has had for a very long time. Not that Pakistan army chiefs have been great thinkers or great soldiers or anything like that, but Asim Munir particularly is a person who is, first of all, he's a Hafiz. I think he should have relegated himself to that status and level to remain there only, instead of trying to bring himself up to the level of being a scholar warrior or a scholar soldier or something like that. Having said that, it's a very interesting analogy that you have put forward. That why did he go to Washington? Why was he invited to Washington? Couple of things that we have to look at. I know a lot of people in India are quite dismayed at the moment. Isko kaise buraya hai inko wahan par? He is the chief of an army of a rogue nation. Virtually, army bhi rogue army hai. Tab bhi isko kyun bulaya hai? Now, I need to essentially remind all our countrymen कि देखिए geopolitics में, international affairs में कोई permanent friend नहीं होते हैं, कोई permanent दुश्मन नहीं होते हैं. Everything in relationships revolves around the status of your interests at a particular time. If you remember, after the Cold War, the Americans just left the hand of Pakistan. That is, during the Cold War, Pakistan was a frontline state fighting against the Soviet Union of Afghanistan. 1991 के बाद क्या हुआ? Until 2001, 10 साल के बाद, when the Americans came back to Afghanistan to fight after 9/11. So this is a momentary thing. It keeps happening. तो जो हो रहा है अभी, this sudden interest which is there in Pakistan, it should be ascribed to that. Having said that, दो चीजें पहचानने की जरूरी है इसमें. पहले तो कि प्रेसिडेंट डोनाल्ड ट्रंप जो है, उनको भारत का, साउथ एशिया का, जियोपॉलिटिक्स का ओवरऑल जो है, I don't think he understands these things too well. He's smart. He's very, very good as a manager. He knows finance very well. He knows trade and tariffs very well. But geopolitics is not something which is his kettle of fish. And therefore, he's used to making all kinds of bizarre statements from time to time. Depending on which side of the bed he has got up, He normally tweets, gives out an opinion. Many years ago, he tweeted about Pakistan itself. One fine morning, he tweeted about Pakistan and said, "Look at this nation. We have given them so many $billion worth of aid, assistance, arms, and weapons. And look what they have given us back in return." Well, now he's diametrically opposite to that, completely. Obviously, and second thing is, you have to also remember American politicians, American presidents have, of course, they are the president. He's the president of the richest nation, the most powerful nation of the world. So he's got a king size ego. और वो ईगो को बाम लगाना उसके ऊपर मुश्किल नहीं है. You have to, I think the Pakistani nation is very good at that. The Pakistan army particularly is very good at that. They are steeped in the tradition of public relations. मैं हर दफे सुनाता रहता हूँ अपने देशवासियों को कि पाकिस्तान ने ISPR अपना इंटर सर्विसेज पब्लिक रिलेशंस 1949 में रेज किया था, right? So this is one domain. As a smaller nation in the South Asian subcontinent, they are adept at this. And they think that it is these unconventional ways by which they can get the better of their adversaries. So, जिसको हिंदी में कहते हैं मक्खन लगाना, virtually, is what he has done. I mean, making a bizarre statement like, Nobel Prize de dijiye aap, क्योंकि he was responsible for actually stopping a nuclear war. We know what the truth and what the reality is. In fact, even after Mr. Modi's 35-minute conversation on the phone, Mr. Trump actually turned around and said, no, it was Modi who was responsible for it. And yes, even Munir also played his role in that. So, एक दिन कुछ है, दूसरे दिन कुछ और है. This is such a dynamic kind of a geopolitical situation जिसमें truth is always the first casualty. And therefore, we should not really get perturbed by it in any way. And I can assure you, Pakistan का जैसे हम अभी discuss भी करेंगे, there is no permanence in this relationship जो आसिम मुनीर के luncheon meeting के साथ हुई है. There's nothing permanent in this. It is a fragile, the same manner in which the relationship has always been.
Sir, ironically, Donald Trump is on a platform called Social Truth, जो उनका अपना platform है, sir. Even I have joined the platform just to follow Donald Trump because that is where he comes first. But when it comes to speaking the truth, he is a bit miser on that front, it seems. Sir, taking this forward, and you just spoke of Dawn, ISPR. I was reading this report in Dawn. जो ISPR को quote करते हैं, sir, about yesterday's meeting, and I'll quote it. The readout says that during the meeting, Trump lauded Pakistan's ongoing efforts for regional peace and stability and appreciated the robust counter-terrorism cooperation between the two states. Now, General Mike Kurilla, the chief of the Centcom, he's also said on the same line, phenomenal counter-terror partner. For the average Indian, sir, who has seen the Pakistanis actually perform that bleeding through 1,000 cuts policy, this seems a bit surreal, I would say. And as someone who has seen this upfront, the nefarious ways, ये कैसे काम करते हैं सर, इनके काम करने के तरीके जम्मू एंड कश्मीर में, सर, none better than you to understand how the Pakistani mind works, the Pakistani army works, how they inspire, how they motivate. Now, as a former general of the Indian Army, sir, what would your message to the United States be?
First of all, I'm very clear in my mind. There was a stage in my life when I actually believed every written word, every spoken word coming out from the mouth of a leader. मैं कहा, ये भाई, ये तो he's been democratically elected. He can't be telling a lie. ये तो मतलब the whole truth will be there. Over a period of time, you start realizing it when you reach positions, higher positions of management and leadership. You realize there is a lie in almost every sentence which is spoken in higher leadership circles. No one means what he is saying. What in a press conference, what a leader half the time reveals is not going to be the truth. He will only reveal how much he needs to reveal and what can ensure that the truth remains shrouded in a pack of all kinds of packaging. तो ये चीजें समझना पड़ता है. Most people who have not been in public life think, and they should, I suppose, think that they expect that real life is public life. No, that is not true. Real life is not public life. तो यहां पर आधे half truths, झूठ बोलना, this is a very usual thing, and this is done for, as I said in the beginning, for your perceived national interest. आपके अपने national interest के लिए आप कर रहे हैं ये. So जो कुछ, whatever you have spoken about him speaking there in Washington, is essentially something which he thinks is in his national interest. And so he's that is the kind of narrative with which he has gone there. Of course, Pakistan is, and I reiterate that, Pakistan is particularly very good at narrative management. And perhaps जाने से पहले उनकी एक सभा बुलाई गई होगी. I'm sure some of the corps commanders must have come and they must have sat together and advised him on this. And he must have gone with that full advice to see how can he curry favor with the most powerful man in the world. Also, we need to remember that the environment which has been created in the recent past is such that, for example, when Ukraine ran out of ammunition a year ago, it fired off the entire ammunition of Europe, and even the United States could not keep up with the manufacture of ammunition the way the Ukrainian army was expending it. Where did the United States, where did NATO get ammunition for Ukraine? It got it from Pakistan.
Pakistan, जी.
$650 million का ammunition वहां से उठाकर C-17 हवाई जहाज में भर भर कर ले गए यूक्रेन. तो कहीं ना कहीं तो पेबैक होगा. You see, after all, there are no free lunches. Payback तो कहीं ना कहीं होगा इसका. And इसी तरह से पेबैक होता है. इंटरनेशनल जियोपॉलिटिक्स में पेबैक इसी तरह से होता है. कोई चीज करी का फेवर करके अमेरिकन्स में गिव सम फेवर टू पाकिस्तान एंड आपका हिसाब किताब बंद वहां पर. अब फिर यू स्टार्ट अफ्रेश अगेन. Although in this relationship, I'm sure we will discuss this as we go along. In this relationship between the United States and Pakistan, and particularly between the Pakistan armed forces and the United States armed forces, there is something very special about it. Goes back to the 50s. If you compare it with India, हमारी military to military relationship actually started in 1991 with a thing called the Kick-Lighter proposals. तब शुरू हुई थी. Kick-Lighter was the chief of staff of, I think he was the equivalent of a chief of staff of the US Pacific Command in 1991. जो वो आए थे यहाँ पर to India at that time, and the first proposals came around at that time. इनकी relationship तो goes back to the 50s. Sito Sento, Gary Powers का U-2 landing from takeoff from Peshawar, crash landing in Central Asia. तो ये सब चीजें, people don't forget this also. ये historical चीजें हैं. और आखिरी point इसमें, on a soldier to soldier relationship, मैं हर दफे कहता हूं, मैं लिखता भी यही हूं सब लोगों को, very simple example to explain, कि अगर मैं अमेरिका में हूं, I'm attending a course of instruction, let's say at the US War College in Carlisle या National Defense University में हूं, मेरे साथ पाकिस्तानी भी हैं साथ में, तो हम अगर साथ साथ खड़े हुए हैं किसी रिसेप्शन में, पार्टी में, तो जो अमेरिकन आएगा वो सबसे पहले हाथ पाकिस्तानी के साथ मिलाएगा, मुझसे नहीं मिलाएगा. क्योंकि it is a natural given thing that relationship is at a higher level than the relationship with us. By and by this may change. It may change. But I don't think that's going to happen in a hurry, because India is a nation with greater self-respect. हम out of turn, एक तो हम जाते नहीं है doing out of turn kind of things, out of the world kind of things which don't add dignity to our nation. You will never find an Indian Army officer doing something which does not add dignity to his nation. But I will not put it past a Pakistan Army officer doing that.
सर यही पैराडॉक्स को मैं आगे लेके चलना चाहूंगा सर, कि स्टार्टिंग फ्रॉम वी हैव सीन फ्रॉम अयूब खान दैट वेरी क्लोज रिलेशन स्टार्टेड विद yet another self-appointed Field Marshal Ayub Khan, to General Ziaul Haq, General Pervez Musharraf, and now Asim Munir. The American establishment, I would say, have unko ek proclivity hai. They are very, very close. They feel very close to these dictators. Although Munir abhi apne aap ko dictator declare nahi kiya, but de facto ruler is Munir. Now, because Shahbaz Sharif is, nobody wants to speak to him. So, इनसे closeness बहुत रहती है. Sir, on the other hand, civil politicians जो हैं उनसे they maintain a distance. The most popular politician, despite all his ills, is Imran Khan, is in jail. जो एक समय पे न्यूज आई थी because he was very, the Americans found him to be very arrogant, and because he had a different constituency to attend to. He is in jail. Now, nobody speaks about him, and everybody is pampering the general लोग. They get on keeping pampered. फिर the Americans come in with their homilies on democracy, human rights, liberty, that sort of stuff. ये सर पैराडॉक्स कैसे बैलेंस होता है?
ये बैलेंस करने की जरूरत ही नहीं होती है इनको. They are quite happy to live in two worlds. The Americans keep doing this. एक तो देखिए, one thing, and I go back to that same issue of public relations and of dignity. National interest is playing up here, and the Pakistan Army, by nature, by its inner capability, is very, very outgoing. कहीं पर भी बेसिक एग्जाम्पल देखिए, अगर मैं लंदन में था doing the Royal College of Defence Studies course, हमारी एम्बेसी हमको कोई मदद नहीं देती थी in a social environment, and I don't even expect it. कि भाई अगर कोई रिसेप्शन करना है हमको, या कुछ हमको डिनर पार्टी करनी है, to invite foreign officers, to invite people to my house or in the college or something like that, can I expect any assistance from the High Commission? No, I will not. पाकिस्तान के अलग जो है, जो उनका रिप्रेजेंटेटिव है, उसके पास सब कुछ है. He will get full assistance from the High Commissioner, from the High Commission, to the extent that things will be delivered in the college, etc., etc. So a cultural difference है यहाँ पर of liaison, cultivation, outgoingness and that kind of a thing. वो चीज हम में नहीं है. जैसे मैंने पहले भी कहा, डिग्निटी इज वन थिंग वी सीक एवरीवेयर वी गो. हम हर वक्त हम हर जगह सोचते हैं हम भाई भारतीय फौज के हैं, आई एम फ्रॉम इंडियन आर्मी, आई एम फ्रॉम इंडिया, आई नीड टू कीप माई हेल्ड हाई. बेशक पाकिस्तानी भी यही सोचते हैं, मगर उनका तरीका अलग है करने का. एंड if you see the manner in which I am told, I've of course not seen it, but the manner in which I'm told, the sheikhs of the Arab world के important personalities जब आते हैं पाकिस्तान में, the way they are fated, the way they are looked after. Similarly, top leadership of the US Armed Forces, the UK Army, all of them are given that kind of a royal absolute treatment. यहाँ हिंदुस्तान में हम जरा थोड़े muted हैं इन चीजों में, and I think it's a very good stance. हमारी dignity है, we remain dignified, we're a democracy, this thing is to the people, not to sort of flaunt all this in front of the people who are coming and visiting India. So ये, because of the public relations effort, this is something which goes about all the time as far as Pakistan is concerned. Yeah.
Sir, now I'll try to ask you to read some leaves, जिसको कहा जाए, sir. The Trump and Munir meeting, there were a few other attendees who might be important in the whole stories. Sir, Trump was accompanied by his Michael Rubio, his Secretary of State, which is very natural, sir. Then he had the special representative for Middle Eastern affairs, Steve Witkoff, who was still very recently talking to Iran. And the Pakistani National Security Advisor, Lieutenant General Muhammad Asim Malik, who is also the intelligence chief, was also present during the meeting. Now, we already have started getting reports of US reconnaissance flights, getting ready to fly. They already fly over Pakistan, maybe. There are some reports, not very confirmed, but these reports never get confirmed anyways. But there are reports, sir. Despite all this, Pakistan has been carrying on to a grandstanding. Unke jo defense minister hai, quite an interesting character himself, Khwaja Asif. उन्होंने कहा था, sir, कि all Muslim countries must unite against Israeli aggression just a few days back. And now they're helping out US and obviously Israel against Iran. जो उनके so and it's एक repeated इनका announcements रहते हैं sir about the support for Ummah. एक वो अलग इनका आता रहता है sir. So my thing is, sir, finally, I mean, do you think that Munir and Pakistan will walk that extra mile to help US and in effect Israel in this war against Iran?
Pakistan is one nation which is used to hunting with the hounds and running with the hares. दोनों चीजें कर सकते हैं वो, ठीक है। ख्वाजा आसिफ ने जो कहा है, आई एम श्योर अनमाइंडफुल, एक हाथ ने कुछ कहा, दूसरे हाथ ने कुछ और किया. That is, there is no kind of a compatibility between what is said and what is done. And this is something very quite usual in Pakistan. And this usually happens in countries where you have a strong military which is there in control and yet is not the constitutional authority. ये ज़्यादातर होता है ऐसे ऐसे देशों में. But now we've really come down to brass tacks because अभी तक तो हम देख रहे थे कि ये US पाकिस्तान रिलेशनशिप असलियत में क्या है. अब हम देख रहे हैं कि ये why did this meeting really take place, और इसमें क्या कोई ऐसी चीज है where the United States is actually reaching out to Pakistan for some kind of an assistance. To my mind, the United States is only optionalizing. ऑप्शंस अपने देख रहे हैं कि क्या क्या कहाँ करना है, जहां करना है कुछ उस ऑप्शन को बढ़ाकर रख रहे हैं. अभी there is no surety that the United States is going to enter the war yet. This whole thing, what is happening between Israel and Iran, to my mind, would have taken place, the planning for it would have taken place 3 months earlier. इस 3 months में उन्होंने अपने ऑप्शन सब डिस्कस कर लिए होंगे पूरे. The US will still say they will keep out of the war because Trump's international image is about a person who wants to avoid war, war will achieve nothing, and that kind of a thing. So as far as possible, he'll remain out of it. But if the contingency comes up, it should not happen that the United States enters into the war and does not come out the victor. And because not coming out the victor is a major problem. Then Afghanistan में भी नहीं हुआ, अभी यहाँ पर भी नहीं हुआ, तो it'll be a problem. Iraq में भी नहीं हुआ था, if you really see. Iraq was also at the end of it a failed effort as such, right? So it's important to keep all your options open. And मैं समझता हूँ, I think that is one of the major reasons why Asim Munir was called. And the composition of the delegations which have met with each other over that meal, obviously it seems to indicate that there is some aspect of the Middle Eastern strategy which has been discussed. Obviously, specifics will not be discussed over a meal, but the broad concept may have been discussed, and Asim Munir may separately have meetings with the US Armed Forces. कोई ना कोई leadership के साथ होगा, General Kurilla के साथ हो सकता है, someone like that. They will have a one-on-one kind of a meeting. At this stage, I don't think they're looking for any Pakistani resources. Essentially, it is bases and in principle kind of a approach saying that, yeah, you can kind of do this, right? What is surprising is something which I've written also about is how does Pakistan hope to survive in the Islamic world? Having assisted a neighboring Islamic nation with whom it actually has no enmity. Dushmani nahi hai between Pakistan and Iran, right? It is after 1979 that Saudi Arabia cultivated Pakistan to a far greater extent to essentially to ensure that on one side, on one flank of Iran was the Persian Gulf and the Gulf kingdoms, essentially Sunni, and the other side also in Pakistan, you would have a Sunni state. So Sunni states on both sides and the Shia state, it is circumscribed by these two states. That was the whole intention behind that, and nothing more at that time. So given that fact, Pakistan had no enmity as such with Iran, except the fact that it was getting a lot of aid from Saudi Arabia and things like that. They in various contingencies and situations, etc. I think recently, about a couple of months ago, they had one standoff which took place not such a serious thing, although a lot of people, sort of judged it as almost like a coming war between the two countries. It was nothing of that kind. It all sort of scurried down to nothing at the end of it. So, at the end of the day, Pakistan will have to live with that fact. But I find that Pakistan is quite capable. Its diplomacy seems to be fairly well developed, and it seems to be able to live with this kind of a thing. If you go to Israel, I always keep quoting this example. I went to Israel and I found that I was thinking that this is a country in which I will not find a Pakistani because there is no diplomatic relations between the two countries. But in a counterterrorism seminar in the summit at Herzliya, which is a world summit on terrorism, I found 3 Pakistanis joining me on the breakfast table in the hotel in the morning. And I found there are more students from Pakistan in Tel Aviv University than there are from India. So, a lot of unknown things exist in the world. And Pakistan's outreach capabilities have to be appreciated. The manner in which they have gone about cultivating people around the world to further their own interests.
So, whether the three participants you were talking about in Israel, sir, were they terrorists or on the security staff?
They were participating in a counterterrorism seminar.
On a serious note, sir, and we have seen Khwaja Asif, sir. Yesterday, I read him, sir, that he's saying that he's not aware as to why Munir is in Washington. What is he doing there? So he's got no idea what his army chief is doing in Washington. He was on Geo News, I believe, talking to somebody. So, sir, Trump, he says that he feels honored after meeting Munir. And one of the things which we as Indians need to be very cautious about is that Iran might not be the only reason they are discussing something. I mean, India could also be it cannot be far away, sir. It has to be very close when Pakistan talks to any country. So this think about nuclear averting a nuclear war. This has been a constant band playing for the past 1 month. That we averted a nuclear war. So does this not allow to basically Pakistan to perpetuate this nuclear blackmail which has been going on for the past 3 decades? Are they not becoming party to this, the United States?
Oh, well, yes, that's an interesting point that you have raised. No doubt about it that by this momentary support, and I still call it a momentary support, this is a momentary support that Pakistan is getting from the United States. Who knows, 6 months later, the shoe may be on the other foot and complete reversal would have taken place. But momentarily, what the United States has done is definitely emboldened Pakistan, will definitely embolden them. But at the same time, I think India's responses in Operation Sindoor were of a far more advanced nature than what we have had ever in the past before. And it is becoming increasingly clear that there is a tremendous amount of space under the nuclear overhang, which can be exploited by India. I would not like to sort of ponder over as to what and where does it take us. But obviously, from surgical strikes to single Balakot strike to multiple 9 strikes in the center of gravity in Punjab, things have gone on far beyond. Timings of up to 88 hours, this has gone on and it can go on even further. I think the escalation control remained with us. We exercised caution and control. And at the same time, what has to be remembered by Pakistan and rest of the world, I suppose, is that this is not a one-sided nuclear issue. After all, India is also nuclear. And we have given a declaration of no first use. But that no first use declaration in the light of an immediate threat may fly completely in the face. I mean, a no first use is as long as there is rationale and reason.
True.
But if a situation is completely irrational, even India could use this option. So for Pakistan to keep saying that we were the ones who sort of control the nuclear thing is a bizarre kind of an argument. they seem to be always threatening that we have the nuclear weapons. See, if you do something, we can do this. We have never spoken about our nuclear weapons, right? And we have never spoken about the fact that under a no first use clause, if the first weapon which comes from Pakistan is a simple tactical nuke, we are open to actually causing out a massive retaliation, which will vaporize a couple of cities inside Pakistan before they can even think of a second response. So I think a lot of people are talking a lot of poppycock on this issue. India has the situation fairly under control in terms of the escalation part of it, but whether we have achieved deterrence for Pakistan to continue its proxy war, that is a questionable thing at the moment. It may think much more, which means essentially what we have achieved is dissuasion. We have dissuaded them. They will think 3 times, 5 times. They will think of the levels to which they should be able to take that action before they actually execute it on ground. So more than deterrence, we have achieved dissuasion at the moment. And that, I think, by itself should keep the situation fairly under control unless things completely go accidentally out of control.
Yeah. So one final question as to how can deterrence be achieved against a nation, sir, which basically behaves like a rogue nation. Its army cares 2 hoots for its own people. So why should they be bothered about sacrificing a few hundred if India does something? I mean, that is the whole attitude as it comes out. So how can a real deterrence be achieved against a nation like this?
You see, 2 nuclear armed nations with near parity in the number of weapons. Of course, India with strategic depth available, the size, continental size, etc. We are in a far superior position. We can absorb much more. But in the world of nuclear exchanges, we don't look at this kind of a thing. Deterrence with the help of nuclear weapons causing a conventional deterrence, to my mind, is a very, very challenging thing. Very, very challenging. And when it comes to subconventional, even more. Because what Pakistan is doing is essentially subconventional. If the subconventional comes to the lowest rung of the overall spectrum of war, or spectrum of conflict, and for something subconventional, then you have to, of course, do something also almost subconventional, or should you say, not full spectrum when you have to respond to it, right? So deterrence is something which is very difficult to achieve in this kind of a situation of asymmetry between 2 nations. Very, very difficult. And I don't think, I think in the case of India and China, where conventional and nuclear asymmetry both exist. There is a fair amount of asymmetry on the nuclear side, and there's a fair amount of asymmetry on the conventional side. Their deterrence is possible. And this, of course, is a different subject by itself. We should not complicate it with the Pakistani side. That is a subject we should discuss some other time.
Thank you so much, sir. So much has been covered in such a short time, sir. We have basically covered the luncheon meeting without bothering about what they had on menu. We have covered a whole lot of issues, sir. And we look forward to...
I would add one thing, Mike. I would add one thing at the end. I think there's one thing which will be achieved by the actions of Operation Sindoor is a change in the nature of conflict in Kashmir, the nature of proxy conflict in Kashmir. It will move away from the conventional asymmetric kind of conflict that we have seen so far, from the kinetic domain into much more into the psychological, the social environment, and things of that nature, cognitive warfare. Making use of all the modern instruments of warfare. is likely to move in there, at least for quite some time, because Pakistan may not want to risk something on the physical side, on the kinetic side, so early after Sindoor. But it still will want to keep the ball rolling, keep the slow fire burning. And one of the ways of doing that is through non-kinetic means.
Sir, are we prepared for it?
It's a subject by itself, I would say.
Very briefly, sir.
We have learnt our lessons. We have been very experienced in fighting asymmetric war. But this is a domain which is completely different. And as I said again, Pakistan has been very good at it. Being a smaller nation, a weaker nation, they have perhaps invested much more in this domain. We, as a stronger nation, more confident nation as such, has not invested enough in this form of warfare. I think we need to do much more about it.
So, a concluding note, sir, I was very worried about calling Field Marshal Munir as General Munir. So, but then I realized that Donald Trump, throughout his discussions and throughout his statements, calls him General Munir. So, I think I was not very far off from the truth, sir.
You were not wrong.
At least me and Trump agree on some things.
Absolutely.
Thank you, sir. I would like to conclude on that.
Thank you very much. And thanks to our viewers. I'm sure they will enjoy this kind of a conversation. So soon after the meeting which has taken place, we are just 24 hours away from that meeting.
Yes,
and we
sir.
hope to do many more such programs to
Thank
bring
you
it to
so
our
much,
viewers.
sir. It's always an
Thank
honor
you.
speaking to you. Thank you, sir.
Jai Hind, Jai Hind.